My younger sister, Lily, has been using the same excuse since she turned 21. She can't have her one true love, so she's free to destroy everyone else's. And I don't mean that in a cute. She's still hung up on her ex way. I mean, if you're happy, she'll find a way to make you unhappy and blame it on her tragic love story. Is there one real love? She met a guy named Ethan at a university party 4 years ago in Portland. They hooked up once, and he never called, so that became her origin myth for being a piece of trash. It began with her best friend since kindergarten, Mia. Lily spent the weekend at Mia's apartment, and by Monday, Mia's boyfriend was texting Lily good morning. When Mia discovered them together in her own bed, Lily replied, "You don't understand what it's like to lose your soulmate." Mia never spoke to Lily again. Then came our cousin's engagement celebration in Eugene. Lily arrived in a dress that turned heads and informed his fiancé right away. What about Lily? She cried to our parents about how seeing happy couples caused her grief. Mom treated her to a spa weekend in Bend to help her heal. By the time I met Ethan, I was familiar with the pattern. I excluded him from family dinners, removed Lily from my social media accounts, and informed him that my sister was going through a difficult time and needed space. For 2 years, it worked. We got engaged last spring. We arranged a simple ceremony in Astoria with only ourselves and a few close friends. I did make one mistake, however. I mentioned it during Mom's birthday supper in Salem. Lily's eyes lit up as if Christmas had arrived early. "I'm so happy for you," she murmured, hugging me. "When do I get to meet him?" A week later, Ethan laughed as he showed me his phone. "Your sister found me on Instagram with some fake account. Look at these messages." We read them together, mocking her desperation, and then he agreed to block her. I had the flu 3 weeks before my wedding, and it was horrible. Ethan was supposed to be at his brother's golf tournament in Corvallis for the day, but a buddy who lived near Lily's apartment complex in Portland phoned me to come over since I was already there with my sister. What? She said she'd noticed Ethan's Audi in the visitor space. My chest went cold. I drove over, fever and all, and used the spare key Lily had given me for emergencies. I found them on her couch, her head in his lap, his hand in her hair, both half-dressed. She looked up at me, fake tears already forming. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "He just reminds me so much of Ethan." I stormed out. He didn't even try to salvage what we had. That's when I decided she'd find out what losing really feels like. Ethan wasn't some mysterious figure who'd just vanished. We'd been following each other on Instagram for 3 years. We had mutual friends from college and would occasionally like each other's posts. But we never really chatted. He lived 3 hours away in Boise, worked as a landscape architect, and shared footage of his border collie. So I slid into his DMs with a simple message. "Hey, this is weird, but my sister had a thing for you in college and just ruined my wedding. Want to help me ruin her life?" He responded with a single emoji. His profile picture was a candid shot from a hiking trail, one of those smiles that made me pause my Instagram scroll for longer than necessary. Lucas and I first met in person at my father's 60th birthday party in Bend, 2 weeks after I officially split from Ethan. I was still wearing sunglasses inside to hide my dark circles and arriving late to avoid questions about my love life. When I arrived at my parents' house, I found him in the kitchen, helping my mother with the dishes and smiling at a joke she'd told. "Ah, this must be the famous older sister," he said as Lily introduced me, offering his hand with a genuine smile. "Lily talks about you a lot." "I'm sure she does," I thought as I shook his hand, which was firm and warm. "I hope it's good." "Always," he replied, but something in his tone made me think he knew exactly what kind of person Lily was. During dinner, I watched how he interacted with my family. He was respectful to my parents, genuinely curious about my father's woodworking stories, and patient when my mother grilled him about his career plans. And with Lily, he was attentive, but in an almost cautious way, as if he was constantly gauging her mood. "Lucas designed that new park in downtown Boise," Lily murmured at one point, leaning against him possessively. I instantly recognized the one with the stunning vertical gardens. "It was a team project," he said gently. "I only did part of the landscaping." "Don't be so modest," she said, kissing his cheek in a way that was more performative than genuine. "He's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant." Lucas looked slightly embarrassed by the over-the-top praise, but smiled politely. I noticed something right then. He wasn't fully committed to her. There was a reserve there, a subtle wall that Lily easily missed, but anyone who knew how to look could see it. After dinner, while my parents showed Lucas old photos in the living room, I had a moment alone with Lily in the kitchen. He seems nice, I said, drying the dishes she was washing. Isn't he? She sighed dreamily. He's so different from all the other guys I've dated. More mature, more stable. Richer, I mentally translated, noting his Tag Heuer watch and the BMW in the driveway. How did you meet? He came to the law firm where I work for a project meeting. I was just passing by with papers and flashed him a smile. It was like in the movies, you know? Our eyes locked across the room, and that was it. And he asked you out right away? Not exactly, she said, and I caught a shadow cross her face. He was polite, but kind of distant. It took 3 casual encounters in the building lobby before I got him to ask me for coffee. Casual encounters, translation, she chased him until he politely gave in. But now, you've been together for how long? 2 months, she murmured, her voice dreamy and familiar. She used the same tone when she talked about Ethan, our cousin's fiancé, and Ethan. And I can feel it's different this time. He's the one, you know? The one. My stomach twisted. There it was again. Lily's narrative about finding the one, which she recycled every time she became obsessed with someone. And it always ended the same way. Someone else got hurt. And Lily found an excuse to justify her actions. That's great, Lily, I lied, forcing a smile. You seem happy together. We are, she said with certainty. Sometimes he gets kind of distant, you know? Like he's thinking about something else. But I know it's just because he's used to being independent. Men like Lucas don't open up easily, or maybe he's just not as invested as you are, I thought, but kept it to myself. When we returned to the living room, Lucas was looking at a photo of me from my college graduation. Did you study architecture too? He asked. Graphic design, I replied. But I've always been fascinated by landscape architecture, especially urban sustainability. His eyes lit up. Really? It's a fascinating field. Are you familiar with Lena Voss's work? Her Cascade Plaza is one of my favorite projects. I am, I said, and I saw genuine surprise and interest on his face. We spent the next 20 minutes talking about green spaces and urban design, the conversation flowing naturally and effortlessly. Lily tried to join in several times, but it was clear she lacked the knowledge to contribute meaningfully. We should continue this conversation sometime, Lucas said as they left. It's rare to find someone who truly gets the importance of sustainable design. Sure, I replied, ignoring Lily's expression. Over the next few weeks, I saw them at family events, our aunt's retirement party, our cousin's daughter's baptism. And each time, Lily grew more possessive, theatrical, and desperate to keep his attention on her. Lucas, you need to try the cake I made, she'd say, even if he was still eating. Lucas, do you remember that funny story I told you about work? She'd interject, even if he was clearly engaged in talking to someone else. Lucas, let's go. You said we had plans. She'd lie when she noticed he was enjoying himself without needing her constant attention. And Lucas? He was too polite to say anything, but I could see the frustration in his eyes, the way his jaw tensed when she interrupted him, how he'd pause before responding when she asked an obvious question about something they'd already discussed, and how he'd look around for an escape when she started one of her dramatic work stories. My uncle's barbecue in Medford was where things started to shift. Lily was telling a group about how she saved a major case at work. Translation, she had photocopied documents someone else created. Lucas quietly slipped away from the group and sat next to me on the porch. Nice place to get away from crowds, he said, looking at my uncle's garden. It's been my favorite refuge since childhood, I told him, when family gatherings got too intense. He laughed. I bet you have plenty of stories. More than I'd like, I admitted. Big families have their pros and cons. And having a sister like Lily, that must be interesting. Something in the way he said it drew me in. Interesting is one word. She's very intense, passionate about everything she does, he said carefully. That's a diplomatic way to put it. We sat quietly for a bit, watching the kids play in the garden. Can I ask you something? He said at last. Sure. What happened with your engagement? Lily mentioned you were engaged, but my stomach twisted. It didn't work out. Sorry, I shouldn't have asked. No, it's fine. I took a deep breath. Actually, it was Lily who ended the engagement. She slept with my fiancé 3 weeks before the wedding. The long silence that followed made me regret telling him. Finally, Lucas said, "Jesus Christ." She said it wasn't intentional. And you? You forgave her? Not exactly, I replied, looking at him. Why? Does that change your opinion of her? He stayed quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. It explains some things, he said finally. What kind of things? The way she clings like she's always afraid I'm going to leave. He blinked. And the way she talks about you like you're competitors instead of sisters. We are, I said simply, at least in her head. When we went back inside, Lily noticed we'd been talking alone. For the rest of the afternoon, she didn't leave his side, making excuses to touch his arm, kiss his cheek, and mark her territory in every way possible. But something had changed. Throughout the party, I could feel Lucas watching me, and when our eyes met, there was a new understanding, as if he saw there were more layers to this family than Lily had shown. That night, when I got home, I found a friend request on Instagram. Lucas Bennett wanted to follow me. I accepted. 2 hours later, I got a direct message. "Thanks for the conversation today. It was enlightening." I stared at the message for 15 minutes before replying. Sure, that would be great. And that's how it all started. The coffee was on a Tuesday afternoon at a small cafe in downtown Bend that Lucas suggested. It was one of those hidden gems only locals knew about, with exposed brick walls, hanging ferns, and the best latte I'd ever had. We arrived almost simultaneously, me coming from my office and him from a client meeting. "This place is amazing," I said, looking around. "How'd you find it?" "I work in the building next door," he said, draping his jacket over the chair. "I come here when I need a quiet place to think." We ordered our coffees and spent over 2 hours talking about everything except Lily. Architecture, sustainability, our jobs, places we wanted to visit, books we'd recently read. The conversation flowed so naturally that I forgot I was sitting with my sister's boyfriend. Lucas had an intelligence that didn't need to prove itself. Instead of simply agreeing with me, he'd ask thoughtful questions, like whether I thought urban farming could scale effectively in smaller cities like Bend. "You're really passionate about this," he said at one point, smiling. "It's not just about work for you, is it? It's about making things better," I replied. "I've always thought design can change how people live, even if it's just a small park." "That's rare," he said. "Most people don't think about the ripple effects of what they create." The conversation turned personal. I told him about my graphic design career, how I'd almost gone into architecture but chose a path that felt more creative. He shared how he'd moved to Boise after college, chasing a job opportunity, but sometimes wondered if it was the right time for big changes. "Sometimes big changes are exactly what we need," I said, especially after unexpected changes. Something in the way I said it made him pause. "Are you speaking from experience?" He gave a wistful smile. "Let's just say the last year has been educational." "In what way?" Lucas was quiet for a moment, turning the cup in his hands. "Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you know you should leave, but don't know how?" My heart beat faster. "Are you talking about work?" Not exactly. The silence that followed was heavy with implications. I knew I needed to change the subject because we were treading dangerous ground. Instead, I heard myself ask, "What's stopping you from leaving?" "Guilt, mostly," he sighed. "When someone invests so much in you, emotionally, physically, it's hard to just walk away, even when you know it's not sustainable long term, even when you don't feel the same." Our eyes locked across the table and the whole world seemed to stop. "Especially when you don't feel the same," he added softly. It was at that moment I should have stood up and left. I should have said talking about his relationship with my sister was inappropriate, should have remembered all the pain Lily had caused and vowed to be better. Instead, I reached out to touch his hand across the table. "That must be hard," I said. Lucas looked at our clasped hands and didn't pull away. "Harder lately." "Why?" "Because I met someone who reminded me what it's like when a conversation doesn't feel like work." My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "Lucas?" "I know," he said quickly. "I know it's complicated. I know it's wrong. But I can't stop thinking about you since that barbecue." I pulled my hand back, suddenly aware of where we were and what we were doing. "We can't." "I know," he repeated. "But that doesn't change the fact that..." "What?" that you're the first person in months who makes me want to be a better version of myself. We sat in silence for a few minutes, each lost in our own thoughts. Lucas finally signaled the waiter and paid the bill. I should go, he said, standing. Lucas, wait. I understand that you're loyal, he said, picking up his jacket. Even when the person doesn't deserve your loyalty, it's one of the things I admire about you. After he left, I sat in the cafe for another half hour, stirring the dregs of my coffee and trying to process what had just happened. Technically, we hadn't done anything wrong. We'd just talked. But there was so much subtext in that conversation that I felt like I'd betrayed Lily, which was insane given what she'd done to me. That night, I got a text from Lily. Lucas said you guys had coffee today. How cool that you're getting along. He seemed so much more lively when he got home. I replied neutrally, saying how nice it had been to talk about architecture, but her words stuck in my mind. He seemed lively. What did that mean? Over the next 3 days, I tried to keep my distance. I didn't respond to Lucas's Instagram messages, avoided family gatherings where I knew he'd be, and threw myself into work. But he'd planted a seed in my mind, not just about him, but about Lily. For years, I'd assumed Lily was just intense or passionate, but that coffee with Lucas showed me something I'd previously denied. Lily wasn't just intense, she was manipulative. For the first time in my life, I wanted to do to her what she'd always done to me. The opportunity came 2 weeks later, at our parents' wedding anniversary in Salem. My mother had encouraged everyone to dress up for photos, even though the gathering was small, with only close family and a few intimate friends. I carefully chose my outfit, a forest green dress that complemented my eyes without being too noticeable. I planned to arrive a little late, knowing everyone would already be there, so my entrance wouldn't draw attention. Lucas was in the kitchen, helping my father with drinks when I arrived. He wore a charcoal shirt that made his eyes look even deeper, and when he saw me, he smiled in a way that made my stomach flip. "You look beautiful," he whispered as I passed by to greet my father. "Thanks," I replied, brushing my hand against his as I took a glass of wine. Lily noticed. "Lucas, you didn't tell me you were helping with drinks," she said, her voice overly bright as she pulled him away. "Come sit with me. I need to tell you about this case at work." I caught his eye as she led him off, and he gave me a look that said, "Save me." Dinner was more of the same. Lily clung to him, making sure everyone noticed. "Lucas is designing a sustainable housing complex," she said, ignoring his discomfort. "For low-income families. Isn't that incredible?" "It sounds fascinating," I replied, looking directly at Lucas. "Are you using integrated solar panels or a geothermal system?" His eyes lit up. "Actually, we're combining both. The challenge is making it cost-effective without sacrificing energy efficiency. What about landscaping? Are you incorporating urban agriculture or just aesthetics?" "Urban agriculture," he said enthusiastically. "Rooftop community gardens, shared composting, even a small orchard." "That's brilliant," I said, leaning forward with genuine excitement. It must be incredibly complex to coordinate all those systems. We spent the next 20 minutes diving into the project's technical details. Lily tried to join in several times, but it was clear she didn't grasp even the basics. She eventually gave up and sat silently, picking at her food with an increasingly annoyed grimace. After dinner, when everyone moved to the living room for coffee and dessert, I had a moment alone with Lucas on the porch. "Sorry if I monopolized the conversation in there," I blurted out. "It's just that your project sounds really revolutionary." "Don't apologize," he said, stepping a little closer. "It's refreshing to talk to someone who actually gets what I'm trying to do." "Lily isn't interested in your work?" He paused. "She is? Interested in the idea of my work, in how it sounds when she tells other people about it. But the real details? The process? The challenges?" He shrugged. "It's not her fault. Not everyone needs to be passionate about sustainable architecture. But it must be lonely," I said softly. "Not having anyone to share that passion with." "It is," he admitted. "Very lonely." We stood in silence for a moment, looking at the lawn lit by string lights. "Lucas," I started, but he cut me off. "I broke up with her," he said suddenly. My heart stopped. "What?" "Last night. I broke up with Lily." "Why?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. "Because it's not fair to stay with someone when you're thinking about someone else." We locked eyes and the air felt electric. "Can I kiss you?" he asked quietly. Instead of answering, I leaned in and kissed him first. Lily opened the porch door just at that moment. Her scream echoed through the house. Lily's scream was so loud and sharp that the neighbor's dog started barking. Lucas and I pulled apart immediately, but it was too late. She'd seen us. "What are you doing?" Ya yelled, her voice almost inhuman. Within seconds, the entire family was on the porch. My dad, uncles, cousins, even our 85-year-old grandmother who usually stayed glued to her recliner, all staring at us like it was a reality show episode gone wrong. "Lily, calm down," my mother said, approaching her cautiously. "What happened?" "She kissed my boyfriend," Lily sobbed, pointing a trembling finger at me. "My own sister kissed my boyfriend." "Ex-boyfriend," Lucas corrected gently, which was clearly the wrong thing to say at that moment. Lily turned to him with a rage I'd never seen before. "Ex? Since when?" "Since last night," he continued, mustering the strength to speak louder. "I tried to tell you, but you didn't want to listen." "You didn't break up with me," she shrieked. "You said you needed time. That's not breaking up." My mother stepped in, breaking the tense silence that followed. "Maybe we should discuss this inside," she said diplomatically. "No," Lily snapped. "I want everyone to hear. I want everyone to know what kind of person my sister really is." She turned to me, tears streaming down her face, but with anger in her eyes that made me step back. "You can't stand to see me happy, can you? First you sabotaged my friendship with Mia, then I sabotaged your friendship with Mia?" I asked, finally finding my voice. "Lily, you slept with her boyfriend. That was different." "How was it different?" "I was going through a hard time." "And now I'm going through a hard time too," I shot back, my voice rising. "Or did you forget that you destroyed my wedding 3 months ago?" A murmur rippled through the family. Some of my uncles and cousins didn't know what had happened with Ethan. "It's not the same thing," Lily said, but her tone was less certain. "Why not?" I pressed, stepping closer to her. "Why is it that when you ruin other people's happiness, it's because you're hurting? But when I do something for myself, I'm the villain? You kissed my boyfriend." "Ex-boyfriend," I said, echoing Lucas. "And even if I did it on purpose, it still wouldn't come close to everything you've done to me over the years." "What have I done?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Really? Do you really want to have this conversation here in front of everyone?" "Yes, I do." "Fine." I took a deep breath and turned to our gathered family. "Want to know what kind of person Lily really is?" "I'll tell you." "No," my mother said quickly. "Girls, this isn't appropriate." "It is appropriate," I said bluntly, "because you've spent years turning a blind eye to her behavior, and now you're acting like I'm the villain in this story." I looked around at my family's curious and embarrassed faces. When I was 16 and dating Connor Walsh, Lily accidentally told him I'd hooked up with his best friend at a party. It wasn't true, but Connor believed her and dumped me in front of the entire school. "That was a misunderstanding," Lily said. "When I was accepted to my dream college," I continued, ignoring her, "Lily called the admissions office pretending to be me and canceled my enrollment. She said I decided to take a gap year to find myself." "A collective what?" whispered through the crowd. "When I got the internship at Design Northwest, Lily showed up at their office and told them I was going through mental health issues and might not be reliable. They withdrew the offer. I was worried about you," Lily tried to excuse herself. "And when I finally found someone I truly loved," I began, my voice trembling. "Someone who wanted to marry me and build a life with me. You slept with him. 3 weeks before our wedding." The silence on the porch was deafening. "So, yes," I said, looking straight at Lily. "Maybe I kissed Lucas on purpose. Perhaps I wanted you to feel a fraction of the pain you've caused me over the years. And you know what? I don't feel bad about it. At all." Lily was crying now, but not from sorrow. They were tears of anger. "You're a liar," she screamed. "You're making all of this up." "Am I?" I asked calmly. I pulled my phone out of my pocket, because I have the messages you sent to Ethan. "Want me to read them to everyone?" Lily's face went white. "Or would you prefer I show the screenshots of the conversations where you tell your friends how much fun it is to mess with my life?" No, Aunt Ellen said firmly. I've seen this happen for years. Remember when she told everyone cousin Tara was cheating on her fiancé at the bachelorette party when Tara wasn't even there? That was a misunderstanding, my mother said weakly. And when she accidentally dropped Lisa's ring down the drain before the wedding, Aunt Ellen continued, and the Mia story, and now Ethan. She shook her head. Carol, at some point you need to stop turning a blind eye. My cousin Derek, Ethan's college friend, spoke up for the first time. To be honest, Ethan told me his side of the story about 2 months ago. He said Lily showed up at his house claiming you'd asked her to check if he was really working late like he claimed, that you were suspicious and wanted to be sure before the wedding. Everyone's eyes turned to Lily, who was turning redder by the second. And when he said, "That was weird because you two talked every day and you never mentioned being suspicious," Derek continued. She said you asked him not to mention it, that it was just so you could be sure, that you didn't want to seem controlling. That's not true, Lily said quickly. He showed me her messages, Derek said simply, all time-stamped and documented. My mother looked at Lily with an expression I'd never seen before. Lily, is this true? I was just trying to protect her, Lily said. Ethan wasn't good. She deserved to know. By lying to him about what I'd asked you to do, I asked, how was that protecting me? You never would have found out who he really was if I hadn't. He didn't do anything, I shouted. You showed up at his house with a made-up story, threw yourself at him when he was confused and drunk, and then made it seem like it was his idea. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? I said, pulling up my phone and scrolling until I found what I was looking for. Then I'll read the message you sent to your friend Sarah that same night. I cleared my throat and began reading. Mission accomplished. My sister's fiancé was easier to break than I thought. Some strategic lies, a little alcohol, and voila, she'll thank me later for saving her from a horrible marriage. The silence that followed was absolute. And here's another one, I added. I don't even feel bad. It's not like she was really happy with him. She was just settling because she was getting old and desperate. Lily shook her head fiercely. You're taking that out of context. And one more, I said, finding the message that had hurt the most. The best part is that now she'll be single again, so she won't think she's better than me anymore. Single sisters are way more fun than married sisters. My mother covered her mouth with her hands. My father looked like he'd been hit by a truck. Lily, my mother whispered, tell me this isn't true. Mom, I can explain. Explain then, shouted my Uncle Marco, my father's younger brother, who'd always had a short temper. Explain how you destroyed your sister's life on purpose. I didn't destroy anything, Lily cried. I saved her. You don't understand what Ethan was really like. What was he really like? I asked. You spent exactly 3 hours with him before deciding he was no good. 3 hours in 2 years of our relationship. I knew by the way he looked at me. For God's sake, Lily, Aunt Ellen yelled. Not every man who looks at you wants something. Sometimes they're just being polite. That's not true. Yes, it is, Lucas said, speaking for the first time since admitting he'd ended his relationship with her. Lily, you took every normal conversation we had and made it into something it wasn't. Every time I was polite, you thought I was flirting. Every time I laughed at your jokes, you thought I was falling in love. You were, she insisted. You said I was special. I said you were an interesting person, Lucas said, which is very different. You don't understand, Lily said, looking to the family for support. You don't know what it's like to be me. Always in her shadow, always being compared. Compared? I laughed, but it wasn't a kind sound. Lily, since we were born, Mom and Dad have told me to be patient with you, to let you win, to not compete. You've never been in my shadow because I never tried to cast one. That's not true, isn't it? I snapped. How many times did I let you win games because you threw tantrums when you lost? How many times did I say you were right when you were clearly wrong because it was easier than dealing with your outbursts? How many times did I give up things I wanted because you wanted them more? I looked around at my family, and the first time in my life I do something I want, something that makes me happy, she acts like I've committed the worst crime in history. Because you did, Lily said. You stole the love of my life. The love of your life? I exclaimed. Lily, you dated for 2 months. 2 months, and most of that time you were complaining that he was distant because he was confused about his feelings. I wasn't in love with you, Lily, Lucas said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I never was. The sound that came from Lily's throat was almost animalistic. "Then why did you start dating me?" she asked, her voice strained. Lucas took a deep breath. "Because you were persistent, and I thought maybe the feelings would come with time, but they never did." "And now you're in love with her?" Lily asked, pointing at me. Lucas looked at me, and the whole world seemed to stop. "Yes," he said simply. "I am." Lily crumpled, physically collapsing to the porch floor and sobbing loudly, making everyone uncomfortable. My mother rushed to comfort her, but Lily pushed her away. "You're all against me," she cried from the floor. "My own family is choosing her over me." "Nobody's choosing sides," my father said quietly. "But Lily, the things you've done have consequences." "What consequences?" she muttered. "I never hurt anyone on purpose." My cousin Lisa, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. "You told my ex-husband I was having an affair 3 days before our reconciliation. Because you thought I was." "I wasn't," Lisa said. "I was in therapy with a man who happened to be the therapist. You saw a photo of me leaving an office with a man and made up an entire story. I thought you didn't think," Aunt Ellen said firmly. "You wanted to cause drama. And when you spread to half the city that I'd lost my job," my cousin Victor continued, "when I'd only switched offices, you knew that. But you decided it'd be more interesting to say I'd been fired. That was a misunderstanding. And when you told my girlfriend I'd made comments about other women," Derek went on, "when I'd only said I thought the new employee was talented. The family listed more examples, one after another, small lies, exaggerated rumors, accidental misunderstandings that always caused maximum drama." Lily grew smaller and smaller on the floor, realizing her support system was dissolving before her eyes. "You're all against me," she said, but her voice had weakened. "No," my mother said calmly, sitting on the floor next to her. "We love you, Lily, but loving someone doesn't mean ignoring when they hurt others." "I never hurt anyone on purpose," Lily said, but it sounded like a child telling a lie she no longer believed. "Maybe not consciously," my mother replied gently, "but impact matters more than intention, sweetheart." Lily looked around the family, searching for at least one ally. She found none. Finally, she stood slowly. "Fine," she said, wiping her cheeks. "I get it. You've chosen her." "As always." "Lily," my father started. "No," she said, raising her hand. "It's clear now. I've never had a chance in this family." She turned to me, and for a brief moment, I saw something like respect, acknowledgement, or... "You won," she said simply. "Congratulations." And then she walked away, leaving the entire family on the porch in stunned silence. My parents' wedding anniversary party ended when Lily left. People started saying their goodbyes in small groups, muttering about the drama that had just unfolded. Some offered me words of support, while others seemed unsure what to say. Lucas stayed and helped clean up as my parents processed what had happened. "You can go home," my mother said, exhausted. "Your father and I need to talk about some things." Lucas and I lingered in the parking lot, unsure what to say to each other. He started. "Intense," I finished. "Sorry you had to see all that. Don't apologize. I'm glad it all finally came out." He paused. "Are you okay?" It was a simple question, but it made me stop and think. Was I okay? I just confronted my sister in front of the entire family, exposing years of manipulation and deceit, potentially ruining any chance of future reconciliation. But for the first time in months, I felt light. "You know what? I think I am," I said honestly. My phone buzzed with messages from cousins and uncles offering support, some asking for details about what I'd said, and a long message from Aunt Ellen praising me for finally standing up for myself. There were no messages from Lily. Dinner with Lucas the next day was different from our first coffee. There was no pretense, no worry about doing something wrong, just two adults who'd been through something tough together and wanted to get to know each other better. "Can I ask you something?" he said as we shared dessert. "When did you decide to do what you did? With Lily and me, I mean." I thought carefully about my answer. "Honestly, I think it was during that first coffee, when you talked about feeling guilty for not feeling the same way she did. I realized you two were stuck in a relationship that was unhealthy for everyone, and you decided to step in. I decided to do to her what she always did to me, I said. The difference is, you actually wanted out of that situation. What if I hadn't wanted to? Then I would have figured that out and stopped, I said without hesitation. I'm not Lily. I don't force situations where I'm not wanted. We talked for 3 hours about everything our families, jobs, dreams, disappointments. It was the first time in years I felt completely at ease with someone, without fear of judgment or manipulation. When he walked me to my car, he asked, "Do you regret it? Everything that happened?" "No," I said without hesitation. "Do you?" "Not at all." He kissed me then a kiss unlike the one on my parents' porch, which had been impulsive, tense, and fueled by vengeance. This one was gentle, promising, and full of possibility. Lucas and I started dating seriously over the next few weeks. We went to movies, ate out, and spent weekends exploring nearby hiking trails in the Cascades. It was surprisingly easy to be with him. Conversations flowed naturally. We had enough shared interests to never run out of things to talk about. But we were different enough to keep things fresh. More importantly, it was the first time I was with someone who saw me for who I truly was, not as a version of myself I had to perform. With Ethan, I'd always felt like I was playing the role of the perfect girlfriend. With Lucas, I could just be me. My mother brought up Lily at one of our weekly coffee meetings, a habit we'd started after the drama. Lily has always been resilient. Maybe this was what she needed to finally make some changes. I wasn't so sure. I knew Lily well enough to know she didn't see this as an opportunity for growth. For her, this was a complete betrayal by the family she thought would always be on her side, no matter what she did. 6 weeks later, on a Tuesday night, my cousin Lisa called to confirm. "Did you see Lily's Instagram?" she asked without preamble. I opened Instagram for the first time in weeks and went to Lily's page. The first thing I noticed was that she'd blocked me. The second was that she'd posted a series of stories about overcoming family toxicity. "Lisa, I can't see it." She blocked me. "Wait, I'll send screenshots." The screenshots arrived within minutes. Lily had posted lengthy captions about narcissistic sisters and families who take sides. There were quotes about cutting toxic people out of your life and prioritizing mental health. But what caught my eye most was the final post. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you the most. I learned that blood doesn't mean loyalty, and sometimes you have to build your own family. To everyone who's asked where I've been, I'm healing from abusive relationships and rebuilding my life. Thank you to everyone who supported me through this tough time. Healing journey. Toxic family. Choose yourself. "She's telling everyone we're abusive," I said to Lisa. "It gets worse. Check the comments." I scrolled through the comments and saw Lily responding to questions with vague claims about years of emotional manipulation and being the family's scapegoat. Some people who didn't know us well offered support, saying things like, "You deserve better. Toxic families are the worst." "What should I do?" I asked Lisa. "Nothing," she said firmly. "Anyone who knows you both knows the truth, and those who don't, well, their opinions don't matter." But that was easier said than done. Over the next few weeks, I heard reports of Lily telling her version of the story to mutual acquaintances, framing herself as the victim of a cruel family. It was exactly what I'd expected she'd do, rewriting the narrative to make herself the victim instead of taking responsibility for her role in the mess. "She's always been like this," Lucas told me one night, when I was particularly frustrated because Lily had told mutual friends I'd always tried to compete with her. People like Lily can't function without a villain in their story. If it's not you, it'd be someone else. "But they're all lies," I said, "or at least completely twisted versions of the truth. And anyone who cares about you knows that," he said, pulling me close. "The rest doesn't matter." Slowly, I realized Lucas was right. The people who knew me best, my family, close friends, co-workers, knew the truth. And those who blindly believed Lily's stories probably weren't people I wanted in my life. More importantly, for the first time in my adult life, I was in a place where Lily's actions couldn't directly affect me. She couldn't ruin my relationship because I'd completely distanced myself from her. She couldn't cause drama at family gatherings because she'd excluded herself. Likewise, she couldn't use our family as a target for her manipulations, because everyone had seen her true nature. It felt liberating in ways I hadn't expected. Lucas and I grew more serious 3 months after the incident at my parents' party. We'd been seeing each other almost daily. I had a drawer at his place, and he'd met my best friends. It was the kind of relationship I'd always wanted: steady, respectful, full of laughter and meaningful conversations. On a Friday night, as we were cooking dinner together in his kitchen, he brought up the topic we'd both avoided. "Have you been thinking about Lily?" he asked, chopping vegetables for the salad. "Sometimes," I admitted. "Why?" "Just, I don't know. I sometimes wonder if we did the right thing." Likewise, I stopped stirring the pasta and turned to face him. "Do you regret it?" "No," he said quickly. "I don't regret being with you. I'd never regret that." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "But sometimes I wonder if there was a better way to handle everything." "Like what?" I'd thought about it several times in recent weeks. "Do you think it would have been different if you'd just ended things with her before we got involved?" "Maybe, or maybe she would have reacted the same way." He sighed. "It's impossible to know." "Lucas," I said softly, placing a hand on his face, "I get the guilt. I really do. But remember, Lily made her own choices. She refused to listen when you said you needed time. She chose to read your politeness as romantic interest. She chose to imagine a relationship that wasn't real." "I know," he said, taking my hand. "It's just she seemed so destroyed." "She was destroyed," I admitted, "but not because of us. She was destroyed because she had to face the consequences of her own actions." We went back to cooking in silence, but I could tell we were both thinking the same thing. Whether we'd been too harsh, if there was a version of the story where everyone came out unscathed. The answer came 2 weeks later, in an unexpected way for both of us. I got a call from my mother on a Tuesday afternoon. Her voice sounded odd, not upset, but confused. "Can you come over?" she asked. "There's something I need to show you." When I arrived at my parents' house in Salem, I found my mother and father sitting at the kitchen table, a stack of papers between them. "What's this?" I asked, sitting down. "Letters," my father said simply, "from Lily, to people she's hurt." I looked closer and saw they were handwritten letters, each several pages long with different names on the envelopes. Mia, her ex-best friend. Lisa, our cousin. Ethan, my ex-fiancé. Even Lucas. "She dropped these off this morning," my mother said. "She said she's in therapy, and her therapist suggested she write apology letters to everyone she's affected. She's not sending them all. Some are just for her process, but she wanted us to see them." "She wrote these herself?" I asked, stunned. "No excuses, no justifications." "No trying to downplay it," my father added, looking shocked. My mother pushed one of the letters toward me. "This one's for you." With trembling hands, I opened the envelope and began reading. "Dear sister, I know this letter is probably too late and you have every right not to read it. But my therapist insists I take full responsibility for my actions, even if it doesn't change anything between us. I deliberately ruined your wedding with Ethan. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't because I was confused or going through a hard time. I couldn't stand seeing you happy in a way I've never been able to be. I made up the story about you being suspicious of him because I knew it would give me the opening I needed. When he was vulnerable, I took advantage. I've also ruined your other relationships over the years. Connor Walsh, that magazine internship, your college enrollment. Whenever you were achieving something I wanted for myself, I found a way to sabotage it. I told myself I was protecting you or that you didn't deserve those things any more than I did. But the truth is, I couldn't handle not being the center of attention. I know you treated Lucas the same way I treated you, and I know it was intentional. And you know what? You were right. I needed to feel what it was like to have someone you care about taken away through manipulation and deceit. The difference is, you only did it once, as a lesson. I did it for years because I was jealous and selfish. I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I'm working to be a better person. I'm in therapy, taking medication for anxiety and depression, and for the first time in my life, I'm trying to understand why I did these things instead of just making excuses. You were always the sister I wanted to be: kind, talented, loved by others. Instead of trying to be like you, I tried to pull you down to my level. That was cruel and unfair, and you didn't deserve it. I hope you're happy with Lucas. From what I know of him, he seems like a great guy, and you make sense together. You deserve to be with someone who sees you the way you deserve to be seen." I love you, and I'm sorry for everything. Lily. When I finished reading, I had tears in my eyes. They weren't really tears of sadness, but of relief, closure. She dropped this off in person? I asked. She did, my mom confirmed. She only stayed a few minutes. She said she didn't expect it to change anything, but she needed to do her part to try to fix the damage she caused. How did she seem? Different, my father said thoughtfully. Quieter, more mature, maybe. She's lost weight and looked tired, but not in a bad way, like she's finally sleeping properly. We spent the next hour talking about the letters, what they meant, and whether we thought Lily's change was genuine or just another tactic. In the end, we agreed there was no way to know for sure, but the fact that she wasn't asking for anything in return, not forgiveness, reconciliation, or even a response, was a good sign. That night, I showed Lucas the letter. He read it silently, his expression shifting with each paragraph. "How do you feel about this?" he asked when he was done. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Part of me wants to believe she's really changed. Another part is waiting for this to be another one of her ploys. And if it's genuine, maybe someday we can have a relationship again. Not like before, never like before, but maybe something functional. And if it's not, then at least I know I did my part. That when she was ready to take responsibility, I was willing to listen." Lucas pulled me close. "You're a better person than I'd be in this situation." "I'm not sure about that, but I know I don't want to live the rest of my life angry. Not for her. For me." I put the letter in a drawer on my desk and tried not to think about it too much. Lucas and I went on with our lives for the next few weeks, going to work, eating out, spending weekends together. He'd started talking about us moving in together, and as terrifying as the idea was after what happened with Ethan, I was starting to seriously consider it. 3 months after the letter, I saw Lily for the first time since my parents' party. I was at the grocery store in Bend, picking out ingredients for dinner, when I spotted her in the produce section. She was dressed casually, without the dramatic makeup she used to wear, and seemed intently focused on her grocery list. For a moment, I considered pretending I hadn't seen her and slipping out the other side of the store, but something pushed me to approach her. "Hi, Lily," I said quietly. She looked up from her list, startled for a moment, then her face softened into an expression I didn't recognize. Not quite peace, but close. "Hi," she said. "How are you?" Good. "And you?" "Better," she replied. "Different, but better." We stood in silence for a moment. Two sisters who were once close but now strangers in a grocery store aisle. "I got your letter," I said finally. "I figured you did. Mom said you all talked about it. It was unexpected." Lily gave a small, sad smile. "My therapist said it would be the hardest part of the whole process, admitting exactly what I did without excuses." "And how was it, to write?" "Horrible," she said, "but necessary. I'd never really thought about how my actions affected other people. I was always too focused on how I felt, how I was wronged." More silence. Then she asked, "How are things with Lucas?" "Good," I said cautiously. "Wonderful." "I'm glad," she said, and to my surprise, she seemed sincere. "You make sense together. I always knew you did, even when I pretended I didn't see it." "Lily, no, I'm not saying this to make you feel guilty or to manipulate things," she interrupted gently. "I'm saying it because it's true. You connect in a way Lucas and I never could. You complement each other." "Thanks," I said, unsure what else to say. "And I want you to know," she added, "that I understand why you did what you did. I'm not happy about it, but I get it. I would have done the same thing if I were in your position after everything I've done to you over the years." "That doesn't make it right," I said. "No," she agreed, "but it doesn't make you a bad person either. Just human." A woman passing by with her cart reminded us we were in the middle of a grocery store. "I should go," Lily said, "but it was good to see you." "Really?" "For me too," I said, realizing I meant it. She started to walk away, but then turned back. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Could you forgive me? Someday?" "Not now. I know it's too soon. But maybe eventually?" The question caught me off guard. I thought carefully about my answer. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm trying. And that's already more than I could have imagined a few months ago." She nodded, as if that was more than she'd hoped for. "It's enough," she said. "More than enough." And then she walked away. leaving me alone among the organic apples, processing a conversation I never thought I'd have. That night, I told Lucas about the encounter. "How do you feel?" he asked, our usual way of processing anything Lily related. "Hopeful," I said after a pause. "For the first time in, well, maybe since we were kids, I feel like there's a version of the future where Lily and I can coexist without constant drama. Would that be good?" "It would," I said, knowing it was true. It wouldn't be like before, and we might never be close again, but it would be peaceful. Lucas kissed my forehead. "You deserve peace." "We deserve it," I said. "All of us." Lucas and I moved in together 6 months later. A year later, he proposed to me on a hiking trail in the Cascades, the same place where we'd had our first truly honest talk about our families and pasts. Lily didn't attend our wedding, but she sent a card. Inside was just one line: "I wish you both all the happiness in the world." The signature was simple: Lily. No drama, no subtext, no attempt to make it about her. It was perfect. Lucas and I now live a life I never thought possible 3 years ago. We live in a home we designed together, work on exciting projects, and have the kind of steady, respectful relationship I always wanted but never thought I could have. Lily and I talk occasionally birthday texts, congratulations on job promotions, condolences when our grandmother passed. She's still in therapy, still working on herself. She recently started dating someone new, someone she met through her therapy group. My mother says it's a healthy, stable relationship. We'll never be as close as we were as kids. There's too much water under the bridge, too much pain caused on both sides. But we've reached a place of mutual peace, cautious respect, love from a distance, and sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's all you can ask for. The revenge I planned for Lily started as a way to make her feel the pain she'd always inflicted on others, but it grew into something much bigger. It became a lesson. For all of us. A lesson in consequences, in accountability, in the possibility of real change. Lily learned that her actions have impact, that manipulation isn't love, that healing starts when you stop seeing yourself as a victim. I learned that sometimes you have to fight for your own happiness, even if it means hurting someone you love. That family loyalty doesn't mean accepting abuse, that setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's necessary for survival. And Lucas learned that the hardest situations can sometimes lead to the best outcomes in life, that true love can grow even from carefully planned revenge. In the end, we all came out of this story as better people, different, but better. And that, I think, is the most powerful form of revenge.